Hi, this is Graham McTavish, and you are listening to the FSF podcast.
The show that tried playing the game, Whose Cylon Is It Anyway? You know, where the jokes were made up and the points never really mattered.
Our show is brought to you by our charity sponsor, the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund, which supports the Wish Upon a Teen Foundation that helps out sick kids when they need it most. And just imagine the comfort you'll give Red Shirt crewman number 13. You'll know that when he goes to reclaim the Misty Mountain from smog along with Dwalin, Ballin, Keely, Feely, Dory, Nori, Ori, Owen, Glowin, Biffer, Bofer, Bomber, and Thorin, that he didn't leave his family destitute and without hope, because the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund has his back, and what's left of his ale mug.
All right, kids and cadets, our guest today is an actor in some of the most popular shows and movies that you've seen out in the last few years, like Outlander, there's Men in Kilts, Witcher, the Hobbit trilogies, and now, of course, on HBO's The House of Dragon. And today he joins us to answer a few questions and hopefully share a few laughs with us. That's the most important part. But we are so extremely excited to welcome Graham McTavish to the FSF podcast. Welcome to the show, Graham.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Oh, trust me, the honor is all ours. We are very excited. We've been giggling about this for the last couple of days and messages back and forth.
Honestly, it's been longer than that. We interviewed Jed Brophy a year ago. And when Jed's like, oh, you should get in contact with Graham McTavish, I about fell out of my chair.
Jed.
And I have been poking at Tim with the, do we get Graham yet? Do we get Graham yet? Do we get Graham yet? For the last year. So it's been a while. I've been excited.
No. Well, Jed's a lovely man.
He is. He's so
We had such
sweet.
a good time with him.
Yeah, he's great. He really is.
So, Graham, one of the first questions that I always like to ask straight out of the gates is I like to talk to people about their background, what got them into acting. We call it, the origin story because we're nerds. We're a trio of nerds. We like, our superheroes and our origin stories and all these different things. But I'm going to bypass that today because I started watching Men in Kilts. And that's fantastic, by the way. Absolutely love it. The banter between you and Sam is wonderful. The way you guys go back and forth with each other, there's a lot of fun there.
Yes.
But there's in episode 1, there's a scene where you guys found your new look like your new paradise when you enter the barley drying room.
Ah, yes, of Lefroy.
Yes, at the Lefroy distillery. And the look on your faces when you're told that you can go dive into and play in the barley is fantastic. And I think that's much how I would look when somebody tells you, yes, you can go do the thing. Yes. So, but I'm always game for more whiskey suggestions. I'm a whiskey fan. And I like Lefroy. I like Lagavulin. There's a couple other. I like Dwyer's as well. I'm more of an Irish whiskey fan, though, to be honest with you. I hang out there. What's that?
Heresy.
Probably so. That's probably because I'm Irish. But I'm always game for more whiskey suggestions. So I'm asking you, what is your favorite, and what do you suggest for whiskey newbies that might be listening to the show right now?
Good question. I've recently discovered a whiskey, a malt whiskey called Springbank, which comes from the 5th whiskey region in Scotland. There's Lowland, Highland, Island, Speyside, and Campbellton. And this is from the Campbellton region. It's a very small region, coincidentally the region that my family come from, Argyll. And I think there's maybe 3, maybe 4 distilleries there, but Springbank is one of them. And this is something I actually share in common with the showrunner of House of the Dragon, Ryan Condal, that he's actually a member of the Springbank, customers, society or whatever. And he and I, we both love it, absolutely love it. It's a combination in flavor of a sort of an island whiskey, the kind that you just described, and a Highland one. So it's taken a little bit of the peat edge off, but it's a beautiful, beautiful whiskey. So I would highly recommend that. Other ones that I've discovered, Loch Lomond malt whiskey, also superb. I'm a fan of Highland Park. Glenfarclas 105 is another favorite. And in the lowland world, the smallest distillery is called Edradour, the smallest whiskey distillery in Scotland. And it's, apart from being a beautiful, beautiful place to visit, the whiskey is superb. But most of it is made for export. So you could probably get it in the United States more easily than you could get it in Scotland, actually.
Okay.
That is the thing, that there's all of these beautiful, wonderful whiskeys, and they are so hard to get in the United States.
Are they really?
They are.
Yeah.
I was actually looking at the Sassenach. I wanted to order a bottle of Sassenach. You can't get Sassenach in Michigan. They
Really?
will not ship it to Michigan.
Oh, that's weird.
Like,
I mean, it took me a very long time to get a bottle myself because he never would send me one.
Oh, well, that's just rude.
No, I know, it's just rude. It's like his book, his new book. Have I got a copy of it? No.
Mm.
No. Was I allowed to read it? No. No. He's hiding it from me. Like he's hidden his whiskey, like he's hidden his tequila.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Well, we
And
know
there is
he's a booze
pattern.
hound, so of course he's not going to share, but...
No. There is a pattern developing. But I hear that Sassenach is a very nice whiskey. And I'm sorry that you can't get it in Michigan. I don't know where they distribute it to, because I'm just kept in the dark.
Of course.
Yeah.
Goodness. You would think he'd have more respect for his uncle than that.
No, he has no respect for me at all. Really, Sam's sole purpose in life, it has become clear, really is to terrify me. That's it, pure and simple. Under the guise of making a television program.
I did notice that in season 1 of Men in Kilts.
Yes. Oh, and season 2, the gloves are off. He doesn't even pretend anymore.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It's just it's an ordeal, really. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's like Naked and Afraid, but it's not far off in terms of its sort of bowel loosening terror that he unleashes.
Kilted and terrified.
I like it. I like it. Kilted and terrified.
It has a ring to it.
It does.
So, Graham, I know that I could talk Outlander all day. The guys I don't think the guys have ever seen an episode. I have seen every episode at least once. Actually just got my mother-in-law started. She started watching it last night, and I think she's at like episode 10 or 11 of season 1 now.
It's important that you groom new people into the fold.
Yes.
Get them.
Yes, they must enjoy this wonderful story that plays out in front of you. But I've actually noticed with your characters, with Dougal, and then with Sir Harold in House of the Dragon, you have this stoic viewer, like attention-grabbing way about you, this presence, this screen presence, which is incredible. And then you watch Men in Kilts, and we have Graham McTavish, who's afraid of heights and
yes,
refused to get on a kayak and rode a tandem bike. But there is a story about the kayak that will come out in due course. I can't tell you about it now. Of course.
You will, in the fullness of time, get the true story about the kayak.
Oh, I look forward to that.
Oh, yes, you will.
But in Graham's defense, in episode 1 of Men in Kilts, he and Sam also talk about how they will put anything into an audition to make sure that they get the job. Can you ride a horse?
True.
Yeah, I can ride a horse. Can you ride a kayak? Sure, I can ride a kayak.
Yes. Fire me out of a cannon. I'm fine. Don't worry about it.
I can do it, no problem. Yeah.
Yep.
I was just interested, though, with the difference between the characters that you play and the actual Graham McTavish that we see. How do you get into the mindset of these big stoic characters when you yourself seem to be a little bit of a goofball?
I guess it depends on the situation. I definitely have a lot of, someone like Dwalin, for instance, a little bit of Dougal as well, Sir Harold. They definitely have a lot of my father in them. But I also have a lot of him in me. And so I access that reasonably easily. I'm in real life, I'm somebody who, I'm polite and, I try and be kind and generous to people as much as I can, all the rest of it. But I also have a very low tolerance for rudeness and disrespect. So in that respect, I'm actually very similar. It's just that you've never seen me do that. But my kids have, and it's a constant source of embarrassment to them. So
that's what parents are for.
Please don't. And there is a bit of Dougal for sure, just below the surface, and definitely a bit of Harold Westerling. Yeah, for sure.
I love it. I actually was reading an interview with you earlier today where I can't remember, it was Square Mile?
Square Mile, yeah. Uh-huh.
The description of you in that interview was absolutely fabulous, talking about being 6'3" and how if Graham McTavish was walking up to you in front of a pub, that it would be totally understandable for you to be walking in the opposite direction away from him. I'm like, no, this is the kind of person that I'd be like, sure, I'll talk to you. I got this.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad. I mean, I remember my eldest daughter, I went to a school event that she was having, and it was in the evening, so it was sort of dark, and she was walking down the hill with her friends, and there was girls and boys and things like that. And I sort of came from behind towards them and started saying hello and hi, how are you doing? How was it? That was really fun, wasn't it? And I just noticed that all the boys just sort of drifted away.
That is a superpower.
They sort of disappeared. And afterwards I said, why did none of the guys hang around? And she said, Daddy, they're very afraid of you. They're very afraid. They find you very frightening. I said, why? I said, why would they find me frightening? And so it's handy, definitely handy in certain situations.
My dad was very similar. My dad was 6'1", full beard, big dude. And he had the same effect on guys. I would be standing talking to guys, and all of a sudden they walk away, and I'm like, Dad, really?
I know.
It's a superpower that I embrace.
It's a beautiful superpower. My husband's going to have to work on that. Our daughter's 4. He's got some time. He's got some time, but he's going to have to work on it.
I will teach the Padawan. It'll be fun.
So speaking of the many characters and roles that you've had, and between Men in Kilts season 2, which we're still waiting a release for, and Netflix The Witcher, and HBO's House of the Dragon, and your now confirmed return to Outlander season 7. And in addition to your voiceover work, you have been very busy lately. So between all those roles, there hasn't been much time for rest and relaxation for you. But in your free time, how do you like to relax and refill that metaphorical cup?
Good question.
Other than with a whiskey.
No, I mean, not so much. How do I relax? Well, books have always been a great part of my life. Reading has been a huge part of my life. And trying now to do a bit more of the writing as well, which I find enjoyable. So I do that, and spending time with my children. So whenever I can, I go back to New Zealand to see them. I was just there actually for about 10 days. I saw the kids, and that's a really wonderful experience, especially when they're at the age they're at, 15 and 10. It's just they're really just precious years, when they're that age, in different ways. I had the pleasure of playing my 10-year-old at chess, and yes, it was a salutary experience. I sat down in front of her, and I thought, I knew she'd played before, but I thought, she's 10. I'm just going to be gentle. I'm just not, And 2.5 hours, this game. And it ended in stalemate. And I had to really, really work at not being crushed by my 10-year-old daughter. So I actually found that very relaxing, very enjoyable. We make Lego together. We do all sorts of sort of fun things. So I find that very, very relaxing. And in terms of sort of activities, things like cycling has always been, I've found, very meditative. I find that very sort of calming process for me, because I do find it difficult to stop. That's a problem. I find it difficult to just slow down a bit. And I'm always trying to think of what to do next. And I know Sam is exactly the same, if not worse than me. So, yeah, it's a problem.
Goodness.
That sounds like
that's going to make for some great adventures with you two.
Yeah. No, he's always coming up with ideas and suggestions and doing things, and we throw things back and forth. And I mean, with him and me together, it's always about finding the time, carving out the time to be able to do stuff. But it's always enjoyable. And I look forward to whatever we do next.
So for many people who have watched Men in Kilts, they've enjoyed it, and I reference this because it's a new show to me, and I'm very much enjoying it. And so, the humor is fantastic, and like I said, I love the banter between you and Sam, and I love the way that you two interact, and you guys truly do seem to have a good friendship, and the chemistry just shows up on screen. You know, how much you enjoy one another's company. But one of the other things I wanted to talk about was going back to that first episode, because it just raised a lot of questions in my mind, not only about the whiskey, but also about the food, because you guys were eating some wonderful food in that first episode. And you guys were talking about different forms of Scottish cuisine. Now, one of my favorite movies is done by Mike Myers called So I Married an Axe Murderer. It's an older movie.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and he says in that movie that most of Scottish cuisine is based on a dare. So, so what I'm wondering is, what's one part of Scottish cuisine that you wish more people knew about and appreciated?
Oh, well, I mean, it's a little bit like Tom Kitchen says in the show, that Scotland has access to some of the best meat and fish. The freshness of it, the quality of their produce is fantastic. So, oysters, any shellfish, any fish, obviously salmon, venison, lamb, it just goes on as the beef. I mean, all of these things I just love. And of course, you can't not mention the haggis, which is a superb bit of cooking. If it's done well, sometimes it's not, but if it's done well, it's really, really great. No, the reputation that Scotland got for its cuisine sometimes was based on all these things like, deep fried Mars bars and all this sort of just fried food that some people were consuming. And, Scotland has struggled in the last however many years to shed that reputation. But it's got some of the best restaurants in Europe now in Scotland, and some of the best hotels as well. So I love eating in Scotland.
Okay. Yeah, because the idea of haggis has always kind of thrown me off, and because I'm afraid of, and genuinely, I wouldn't be against trying it, but I'm always afraid of what if they don't know really how to cook it. What if it's not, cooked correctly?
Well, what you mean? You mean food poisoning?
No, I mean just not being a good chef.
Oh, well, it's more about the ingredients than the cooking, because the cooking is pretty basic. It's basic. You just put it all in the sheep's stomach and then it's just cooked. There's not a lot can go wrong with that, but it's the ingredients. It's what goes in that's important, the quality of the ingredients. And that's where the really good haggis makers excel. But I would recommend only trying it in Scotland, unless you can get a very, very good imported haggis, and go to reputable butchers that specialize in it. And then you will not be disappointed. Yes.
Yeah, because I've gone to a couple of Scottish/Irish restaurants here in Michigan, and I've seen it on the menu a couple different times, and each time I went,
yeah. I mean, I don't know. It could be okay. But I get your point. Save yourself until you're in the land of the haggis, and then fill yourself with the haggis, and you will be replete. You will be happy.
So take it out of that stomach, put it in your stomach there. Gotcha. Okay.
The concept of haggis has always confused my brain a little bit. And at the same time, I'll eat sausage. Like, that's stuffed in intestines. It's fine. Like
Exactly. And, and it all comes from, the way that the Scots are very, very practical.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing goes to waste. So it's like, what should we have for dinner? Let's just scrape everything off the table and just ram it in a sheep's stomach and cook it. All right, Dad. That sounds great.
There you go.
So that's probably the birth of the haggis.
I do have to say, talking to three Americans about the reputation Scotland has gotten for fried foods, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, they just gave that to America now.
Yeah, that's called the South in the United States.
I didn't want to mention it, but yeah.
Can we deep fry that? Oh, hell yeah, we can deep fry that.
Oh, I do love deep fried food, though.
There's
It's
time for
tasty.
everything.
It's tasty.
Although I have actually found that fried food is just as good in my air fryer. And I never thought I would say that.
Oh, I've never used an air fryer.
Oh,
They can be quite fun.
I never thought, like when the air fryers first started becoming popular, and I'm like, no, that's dumb. I'm just going to keep my deep fryer. Yeah, no, this is way easier.
Really?
Is there a dish where haggis is deep fried?
Listen, if you can imagine it, it will have happened. Yeah,
Okay.
it will have happened. I'm sure of it. I mean, if they can deep fry a Mars bar, and if they can deep fry a pizza, they can deep fry a haggis.
Ooh, deep fried pizza.
It's there's nothing that they won't try and fry in Scotland, but I try and avoid that as much as I can.
It's probably better for your arteries.
Quite.
So, in addition to traveling the absolutely beautiful countryside of Scotland with Sam, you guys also wrote a book together. Clanlands, wow. Whiskey, Warfare, and a Scottish Adventure Like No Other. That is a fantastic title for a book.
It's a good title, isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
I was pleased with that. Yeah.
Could you tell our listeners about the book and how it came about?
Well, Clanlands. I'd sort of come up, weirdly, I'd come up with this title, 30 years ago. I wanted to write about Scotland and do sort of DVDs, as they used to have, and of Scottish clans and stuff. I had a great interest in Scottish history. And then it took, Outlander and everything else to sort of bring that to pass. And with the book, we'd done a teaser. We'd shot over I think 5 weekends in Scotland, me and Sam, to get enough footage together to persuade stars that they should allow us to sort of be unleashed all over Scotland in a camper van. And we assembled all this together, and a lot of that formed the basis for the book, for Clanlands, that early experience. So there are lots of things that we speak about in Clanlands that are not in Men in Kilts, for instance. And it was really just a kind of like a love letter to Scotland, really. Just these extraordinary people that we met that you couldn't make up. Amazing characters, wonderful locations, and the fact that we quite literally did the journey with no real planning at all. There was no script. There was no, let's make sure this is covered and all the rest of it. We just found people that we were interested in, and we went and talked to them and drove there in a camper van. And I learned a lot about Scotland and about Scottish history that I didn't realize myself. And I count myself as somewhat of a scholar of Scottish history. And I just found it fascinating, particularly the endless feuding, the gigantic lengths that the Scots will go to take revenge on each other. I mean, they are just fearsome. And clans, well-known clans, the MacLeods, the MacDonalds, the Campbells, the Colquhouns, all of these guys, they love nothing better than a good scrap.
Right.
I mean, my favorite one is it was the dispute between, now let me get this right, the Macintoshes and Clan Chatton, and that Robert II decided needed to be settled on a battlefield. Well, they created a battlefield, and they built stands and everything like a football match, and the king had his own special area and everything like that, and 30 of each clan brought there, and they would have a pitched battle until one was left standing. One lot would win, and so they started. Now the problem was, one of the clans turned up with only 29, so they were one man short. And now this tells you everything you need to know about Scotland. They're one man short. Okay. So rather than, for instance, like a kind of mad idea, ask one of the other team to just step off the pitch, they went, no, we have to find another. And so they went to a local pub and they literally just said, anybody here want to fight? And the local blacksmith, who was probably in the middle of supping his pint, just went, aye, that'll be me. And he just got up, no connection to the clan whatsoever, joined them. They began the battle. And Sir Walter Scott speaks about it subsequently in writings about Scottish history, that these people they had a half time. They had a break. They had like benches where they went and sat, after like 10 of their friends had been slaughtered. And then after a 15-minute break, it's like, right, lads, it's time to get the axe out again. Got to get in there. And then they went out and they continued until there was literally only one man left on one team. And he jumped in the river and escaped. And one of the people that was left standing was the blacksmith. And I love that story because it perfectly encapsulates Scotland. They're always just one drink away from a punch up. And it's kind of wonderful, really.
I love
Fun
that.
fact, a beard actually cushions a punch. Like, it's like micrograms, but it's still like cushions a punch ever so slightly. But
I guess so. Yeah. I'm not going to start punching myself in the face, but yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
It would. It would be just a little bit of a cushion.
Handy thing to know.
Yeah, it came up one time, and it was a weird conversation, and it
sounds like it.
We can try it out with just your mustache, Nick.
I'm going to punch you in the face. You got a beard, so you got an advantage. Yeah.
And now a word from our sponsor. Since 1982, Vital Signs and Graphics has been helping professionals with all their image, logo, and design needs. Perhaps you're looking for signs and banners, truck and trailer lettering, business cards, brochures, or other image and marketing aids. Vital Signs and Graphics in-house design studio has you covered. From logos to apparel, start to finish, Vital Signs and Graphics has everything you need to look and feel professional. Call Rick at 231-652-3300. He'll get you noticed. Welcome back to the FSF Popcast.
So we've had the privilege of talking to Jed Brophy. He's an awesome guy some time ago, and just a delightful conversation. He also lives in New Zealand.
He does.
So what is it about New Zealand that drew you enough to relocate from Scotland to what most of us see as the real world Middle Earth?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd done The Hobbit, and at the time, my youngest daughter had just been born. She was literally like a year old when the movie's finished, and it came to that decision. Do we move back to Los Angeles, for instance, which is where we'd come from, or do we stay here? And if I'm honest, the main reason was that we preferred the idea of educating our children in New Zealand, having the upbringing and the lifestyle of New Zealand for them rather than the lifestyle of LA. And that very much informed our decision. So it posed some pretty major problems for me commuting wise, because of course, almost immediately I no longer worked in New Zealand. I was just constantly working abroad in America and in Europe. But I've made it work, and I see them very, very, very often. And they come over. They came and visited me in London while I was doing The Witcher, and obviously while I was doing Outlander, they were living with me in Scotland, and it was it's been great. And I think New Zealand, especially for children, is a great, great, great place to live.
That is the best reason. That is the absolute best reason.
Yeah.
Thinking about the difference between New Zealand and LA, that is huge.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine raising my daughter in LA.
No,
thank you.
I know.
All right, so Graham, looking over the roster of roles that you have played, which is impressive, and you've had the opportunity to be part of all these really cool shows. We've mentioned them all: Hobbit, Outlander, Witcher, House of Dragon. And that's just kind of scratching the surface of some of the things that you've done. But I have a question for you about the Hobbit in particular. Now, I know that you played the role of Dwalin, one of the 12 dwarves in the Hobbit, but I have to assume that there was some physical challenges attached to the angle of the camera and how they did the camera work to make you appear smaller in stature than Sir Ian McKellen's Gandalf. So what I'm wondering is what were the physical challenges that you endured or had to come across it to do that role?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I got the part, I knew that it was going to be very physical. So the second phone call that I made after getting it was to my good friend who was a personal trainer in Los Angeles. And we started a sort of, I think, 5-month training regime to get myself match fit. And so that when I got to New Zealand, I was, because at this point I was 50.
Okay.
And at this point, so I decided I wanted to make sure that I would be injury-free and able to do all the things that would be asked of me. I knew the costume was going to be heavy. I didn't realize quite how heavy it was going to be. And obviously I'd never fought in prosthetic makeup, but I knew that was going to be a challenge. So that informed a lot of it. Then we had 3 months of training ourselves when we got there. So that by the time we started, particularly me, Jed, Aidan, Dean, and Richard were very, very fit for the roles. And the physical challenges, you know, I mean, when at my heaviest, my costume with the axes and the cloak and everything like that, that weighed close to 70 pounds over my body weight. Ooh. So I was, you know, running in that, fighting in that. And the problem with that as well was that because we were wearing this prosthetics, the nose, the top of the head, and I had prosthetic arms as well. So it was like wearing like 5 pairs of washing up gloves that happened to weigh 5 pounds each. That just meant that whenever you exerted yourself in a fight, your heart rate would spike immediately. And your heart just couldn't understand why you weren't cooling down because there was nowhere for the heat to go. So you would just, you would have to stop. And so my training became about recovery, how quickly I could recover. And so that was very, very important. But Peter had no sympathy. No. No sympathy at all. I remember the first time we did a fight and, you know, we were trained. You know, we fought, it was the spiders, I think, were attacking us. And it was about a 2-minute fight. And at the end of it, I mean, you're literally, you know, you're practically on your knees. And he's like talking to us going, "You all right, lads? You okay? Can you carry on?" Because he just had no sympathy. But he did eventually wear the dwarf makeup for just half a day. And he said, "I don't know how you've done it."
That's fantastic.
The interesting thing, you know, we were constantly being put in, you know, situations of misery. You know, the fish being pulled on our heads, the barrels going down the river. There was being bound up in cobwebs. That was pretty nasty. The cobweb thing was pretty nasty. Being suspended from a spit, being roasted over a fire. And I remember that I was the first one on the spit and the last one off.
Oh,
so I was basically on that spit for the best part of 2 hours, literally bolted to a spit. I remember Adam Brown puking. There was somebody else had some kind of panic attack. And there we are just being turned slowly for 2 hours. And sometimes I did think that The Hobbit was just a pretext for Peter to just exercise his sadistic tendencies. Because it was remarkable what he did, just putting us through these awful things. But it was great fun. And Jed, I mean, he won't have said this because he's too modest, but Jed, I don't think Jed ever sat down. He was like the Harold Westerling of The Hobbit. He never sat down. The most that Jed might do, because we were provided with chairs, and Jed just kind of refused in this kind of stoical New Zealand fashion. The most he did was go down on one knee. I remember that. He would, and then you knew that Jed was really feeling it. If he went down on one knee, it was like the canary in the coal mine. You know, when Jed starts to exhibit any kind of tiredness, you know you're in trouble, because that guy is like a machine. And I always remember we competed against each other once to see who could do the longest plank when we were training. And I was pretty confident. I was in great shape. And I thought, okay, And I think I managed 3.5 minutes. Right. Jed did 5 minutes. 5
Man.
minutes. And I think he only stopped because he was bored. Yeah.
Was that with or without the armor?
Oh, that was without the armor. Yeah, that was without the armor. But yeah, it was great though. It was great, and I mean that alone, it was such a wonderful physical challenge. The entire experience. It was one of the best things about it, actually.
That's awesome. I love hearing stories from movie sets like that, especially movies that I love so much.
Yeah.
So, Graham, as a young mom, I love to ask advice from experienced parents. You have 2 daughters yourself.
I do.
My daughter, Anara, is a very energetic, fiercely stubborn 4-year-old. So my question is, how do I guide my daughter without putting out the fire that I know that she's going to need later in life while still trying to live with her?
Gosh, what a very, very difficult question. I mean, the best thing you can do, I guess, well, what I try and do, it helps that I am a child. That's helpful. Mm-hmm. That I've not forgotten what it's like to be a child, because part of me still lives in that world constantly. So, I listen to them. I try and remember what it was like for me in those sort of situations, how my own parents, because they're the people that really give you the template for how to bring up your children. And if they've done a good job, then you too will invariably do a good job. And yeah, listening, wanting to have fun with them, because they all want to be doing stuff all the time. And it is tiring. I mean, my goodness, it's the most tiring thing I've ever done being a parent, especially when they're little, as I'm sure you can testify.
It is exhausting.
It is totally exhausting because there's no off button.
No.
Unless they pass out, which is your constant hope that they are going to pass out.
Yes, it is.
Your day is really spent trying to exhaust them, to just drive them into sort of some kind of semi-coma. That they'll sort of be out for at least, I mean, I remember if it was half an hour, I'd be like, oh, this is so great. And you'd be there with them, and they would lull you into that false sense of security where it had been quiet for half an hour. And then I remember I'd be sitting there doing whatever, and then I'd look over and I'd see these little eyes looking at me. It would be like, I'm back, Dad.
Yes.
Yes. Be afraid.
Oh.
But they're the best thing.
They are.
They're the most tiring thing, but they're the best thing in anybody's life, I think. It's the thing that I'm most proud of, and the thing that gives me the greatest joy in my children. So it's a wonderful privilege, and it's not always easy. But if you can take a step back every now and then and go, no, this is good, and then just and really enjoy them, and they'll enjoy hanging out with you. And don't be, and this is my personal view, don't be overly protective. Be protective, but don't swamp them with kind of, no, you can't touch that, don't pick that up, don't eat that, don't do this, all the rest of it, sort of fussing around them constantly. They need to be a little bit free range. They need to be able to do stuff. And I mean, I remember, for instance, my eldest daughter, one of her favorite occupations was eating carpet fluff. And she would love it. We had a new carpet, and we were constantly vacuuming it, trying to get the fluff out. But she would just find bits and like, and we, obviously you can't let her have a diet of carpet fluff. Right. But it did her no harm, is my point. She's fine. And my mother used to say, the saying she had, which was probably passed on to her by her mother, who was a Victorian, is eat a peck of dirt before you die. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the measurement of a peck, but a peck is a lot. It's huge. It's a giant amount of dirt. So make sure you consume enough dirt, you'll be fine.
There you go.
So last question, more on the sillier side than serious. And
Okay.
if you wouldn't have been an actor, what would you have pursued?
Okay. Well, I was going to be a pilot. That was because my father was a pilot. He was a pilot in the RAF in the Second World War, and then he was a civil aviation pilot. So I'd grown up with that, and I was really struggling. I wanted to be a writer. That's what I loved doing when I was a teenager. I wrote these books, these adventure stories, and I wrote plays that I put on at school and things like that. I was sort of savvy enough to know that that wasn't necessarily a great career choice, was to become a writer at that point. So I was all geared up to be a pilot. So I'd done the medical, and I was going to go to university, and then I was going to join the RAF and all the rest of it. But apart from catching the acting bug when I was about 17, I realized that the three things that I loved about being a pilot was the uniform, the travel, and the ability to meet attractive women. That was it. And I thought, let's just be an actor instead. You know, you get to wear the uniform without the responsibility of 400 people when you're flying around. So I kind of I ended up not being a pilot. But one of my great regrets is that I never followed the offer from my father of teaching me to fly. I mean, it's never too late, but he could have taught me to fly. And I did one lesson with him, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll get around to this. I'll do it. I'll do it later. And then I never did. So that was a regret.
Okay.
Well, Graham, thank you so much for being on our show today. Where can our listeners go to find out more about you and things that you're working on?
On Instagram, I am at Graham McTavish, all one word. The same with Twitter. I am not on Facebook. I don't do TikTok. I mean, there's just some things you have to draw the line with, really. You just have to.
I'm sure Sam will try to convince you to do TikTok.
Is he doing it?
I think he is.
Oh, for goodness sake. He has no shame. And I'm off. Yeah, I'm off Facebook, and I have a website, GrahamMcTavish.com, which I need to update. But those are the places where I'm sort of around. Yeah.
And people can find your book where?
Oh, the book. They can find the book on Amazon, Waterstones if you're in the UK, Barnes and Noble. Yeah, a lot of outlets, a lot of countries. I think it's translated into 9 or 10 languages now, which is quite bizarre, really.
It's got all 5-star reviews on Amazon.
Oh,
and there's like 12,000
That's really
of them.
nice. That's really good. I didn't know that. That's great.
It's good to know, isn't it?
It is.
Your work should be appreciated. You guys have done a lot of very, very impressive things.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we are going to make sure that we link your socials and your website and the Amazon link for your book in our description so that our listeners can go check all of that out.
Alrighty. Thank you very much.
And we also want to remind everybody that subscribing is the single most important thing that you can do to ensure that we get more amazing guests like Graham McTavish here today and have funny moments for you to be able to listen to. So please subscribe. It helps out more than you know. And please make sure that you go check out Graham's work as well and click that link down in the comment section below. Go buy yourself a book. You won't regret it. But if for whatever reason you are not happy with the content of our show today, please feel free to lodge a complaint with the head of our complaint department. That, of course, is the master distiller of Laphroaig whiskey. Now, after Sam and Graham left a little bit of Sam and Graham in the barley dryer, he's had a bit of a bone to pick. So if you send in 2 carefully completed complaint forms, he will see to it that the offended parties become one with the bog, if you know what I mean. Or just tell us what we did wrong over a wee dram of whiskey and let us be bog free.
Or we can build an arena and fight it out.
That's right. Robert II knew what he was doing.
I'm growing out a beard. I want to take less damage.
Man, but I can't grow a beard. My poor jaw.
Oh, it's okay.
Well, thanks again, Graham. This has been fantastic. We appreciate your time.
Pleasure. Lovely to see you all.
Thank you. It was wonderful meeting you.
You too. All right. Bye for
All right,
now.
guys, that's going to conclude us for the FSF podcast. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
On behalf of the rest of the hosts of the FSF Podcast, we want to thank you for listening to this episode. If you'd like to be a guest on a future episode, please contact us by means of Twitter or Instagram using the handle @FSFPodcast, or go to www.fsfpodcast.com and click on the Contact Me link. Thanks again, and hope you enjoyed the episode.